Today we're going to go over how organisms are classified. And this is something that I'm pretty sure you've studied before, so hopefully it will be very quick. The characteristics that are used to classify organisms, and don't feel like you need to write all of these down, but structure, function, biochemistry, that's the DNA amino acids that we've been talking about, behavior, nutrition, embryonic development, genetic systems, cellular and molecular makeup, evolutionary histories, and ecological interactions. A whole bunch of stuff. Take a moment, think, which one is the most important? Hopefully you're thinking this one right here, the DNA, and you would be correct. And structures, well, skeletal forms, reproductive parts, DNA, those are the most important because those are things that don't vary as much between individuals in a population. So if we think about the example here with these tigers, okay, so these tigers, if you looked at their exterior coat colors, there's quite a wide range. But if you were to actually look at all of their skeletons, they would all be pretty much identical. And if you looked at the DNA, of course there would be minor variations because it's a sexually reproducing population, but it would all be, for the most part, exactly the same. To tie in classification and evolution, in case you weren't clear, all of these things that we use to classify organisms, such as homologous structures and skeletal forms, and those biochemical similarities, so things like DNA, that indicates related ancestry. So we're using that to help with classifying organisms. The actual system that we use when we're kind of giving organisms their scientific names is referred to as binomial nomenclature, right? And remember, bi means two. So every organism has two names, and we'll get to that in a moment. Carolus Linnaeus, the first guy, so Linnaeus, came up with this idea. His were a little different, though. He thought that all organisms were in one of two kingdoms, plant or animal. So now we know that this information is wrong because we have 6 kingdoms. We'll get to those in a minute. But one thing Linnaeus did that was really great is that he based classifications on specific traits. So he didn't look at flower color, for example, and say, oh, all of these purple flowers are related, all of these red flowers are related. But he looked at the really specific parts, so like the reproductive parts of a flower, not just how tall or what color they were. So starting with what Linnaeus developed, we now have these levels of organization, which we can see right here. The domain one may possibly be new to you, although we did talk about it earlier this year, but perhaps in middle school you didn't talk about domains. But domain is the broadest category. There are 3 domains, and then kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. And species would be the most specific. So if you need a little acronym to remember, darling King Philip came over for a great spaghetti. So as I mentioned previously, the system we use is binomial nomenclature. So an organism's scientific name, right, made up of 2 parts, binomial, the genus and the species. So humans, our scientific name, Homo sapiens. So if you were typing it out, okay, you would italicize that, as we can see right here. It's italicized. If you were handwriting it, so if I were writing the name, I can't italicize my handwriting, but I would underline that. And that's because these are Latin names, so it's just something we do. Also notice that the genus, the first part, always starts with a capital letter, and then the species name is a lowercase letter. So just a couple of rules, good to know. As we mentioned previously, there are 3 domains, archaea, eubacteria, and then eukarya or eukaryota. So the archaea and eubacteria are both prokaryotic domains, and then the eukarya are all of the eukaryotes. So these are the big, broad classifications, really based on basic cell structure. And we can see those down here. So here are the archaea bacteria, the eubacteria, or true bacteria, and then all of these are the eukarya domain. We can see plants, animals, fungi, and the rest of these are all protists. Here are the 6 kingdoms. So archaebacteria and eubacteria, with the pen there, okay, these are also their own domain. Okay. And then protista, fungi, plantae, and animalia, those are all in the eukarya domain. Okay. And then they break down into 4 kingdoms. We spend most of our time when we think about diversity on this planet probably thinking about the kingdom Animalia, right? All the animals, but there's a lot of other stuff too. And finally, here's just a graphic showing you these 6 different kingdoms with some very basic information about each one. So the archaebacteria and the eubacteria, notice they're both unicellular and prokaryotic. Protista, plantae, animalia, and fungi, all eukaryotic. Protista are mostly multicellular, or mostly unicellular. Some are multicellular, and then plantae, animalia, and fungi are all multicellular. And one of the things we're going to be focusing on next class is what are the differences between all of these on a cellular level. So it's a topic that we will revisit from earlier in the year.